Hey everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Raven.
And I am Tiff
She's in
Salcido. In case you're wondering,
case you were wondering, the
in
first
case you're
time you ever
wondering.
heard these voices, right? Yeah. And so, um, Tiff, it's been a while since we've connected. So, how are things going? How's your are you falling into fall?
No, it's hard to fall into fall when it's still 95 degrees. You know what I'm saying? It's still hot. I'm still hot. Um, I know that the temperature is starting to fall, but like it's currently 96 degrees. So it's hard for me to be festive in the fall spirit when I'm still wearing tank tops and shorts. So once I get that first like super crispy morning, that real crispy morning, then I will feel fall like. But until then, I'm still in summer mode. I don't care. I
I
like
can't
summer
wait.
though. So
Yeah, I can't wait till hoodie weather. I mean, it's already getting darker.
yeah, that is
Right?
true. It is getting darker. It's just still hot for me. So I'm like, ugh,
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the heat either, so
yeah.
yeah.
I like moderate heat. I like 70 and 80 degrees is like my sweet spot. If you can give me 70 to 80, one of the reasons I moved to Mexico is that we get 70 to 80 most of the year. So it's like perfection, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge fan. I guess I'm like every other person in the whole entire world. I'm not a huge fan of like the super hot or the super cold. 70 to 80 is chef's kiss for me.
San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
seriously.
yeah.
Um, but I love weather where I can wear like a hoodie in the morning and then it's off all afternoon and then the sun goes down and I need that hoodie again. I'm like living my best life. That's why I'm beach wave Tiff. I could live on a beach. I love beach weather. Beach weather is my favorite. Beach weather, beach culture, um, all any beach. It doesn't even matter what beach. I just love beaches. Where my beach is at.
Are my beaches in the back? Yes. All right. Sorry.
Yep. I
I
love a
was
good
corny.
love beach weather.
Very cool. So I was actually going to be my question. So just one of those simple questions. What is and now I can't remember exactly how it goes. I think it's beach, I mean ocean, lake, or mountains.
I'm a beach all the way. All the
Yeah.
way. I don't like lakes. The only time I like a lake is if I'm in a boat in the lake and I can't touch the bottom. But lakes gross me out. All the slimy stuff that like on the shore, the sentiment and the plants and stuff. I'm like, oh, what was it? Ugh, what was that? It just I'm not a fan. And I hate the way I smell like lake. When you get out of a lake, you smell like lake. And I'm not a fan of lake. I do like the mountains. I like rivers. It goes
Very,
ocean, beach, and then rivers. I do love rivers,
very
but
cool.
you can miss me with the lakes. I don't like lakes.
Yeah. I probably I don't know. See, I grew up near a beach. I grew up, you know, San Francisco and but I mean it's not really when you think of that type, in Northern California, beaches are different. It's a different animal. And
Yeah.
so um, I but I never really my issue with beaches, I don't mind beaches, sand. I can't
Love
deal
sand.
with the sand. I'm not a fan. Talk about sediment. That's the type of sediment that sticks with you forever. It's in your car, it's in everything. And
And you know,
so,
it's funny that you say that. We're so different because when I see the sand and I get the sand in my shoes and it's on in the car and it's on my legs and it's on my feet in between my toes, I'm like, that's a sign of good living. That's always what I think. Like the sand is a memory of a good time. And it reminds me, it's like, I don't know. I actually love the sand. That's one of my favorite things is the sand.
just the sand gets into everything. I mean, the sand gets into your phone, gets into your book, gets into a hot dog. Just, I mean, does it have to be so invasive? I mean, can it? Does sand has no boundaries? You know what
It
I'm
does
saying? I
not.
mean, it's so rude. I wish, I wish it would respect my boundaries a little more. That's all.
I know. You know what? I spend a lot of time with sand. I'll talk to the sand. I'll see if we can clear some things. I'll advocate for you, Carl. I'll say, look, sand, Carl likes to see you from afar, doesn't want to go home with you. So if you could just stay where you're at, that'd be
Yeah, because I mean, because if that could happen, then I'm all about beaches, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
That's like
yeah.
one of my favorite things. As soon as I can get my shoes off and get my feet in the sand, I that is like the most immaculate feeling. I just love it. I really just love it.
So I will tell you, yeah, burying my feet into warm sand, that is the business. That really is
Hmm.
something. Yeah, I dig that. It's just
Hmm.
I don't want to take it with me.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with it. I
Yeah.
always have like sand in my hair. It's in my shoe. I'm telling you, I don't mind it so much. Again, that just is like it was a good day. You spent a good day in the sand. I do like it. But I'm an ocean person. I'm a water sign, so I don't know if that means anything, but I know that when I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed out or like need perspective, I immediately gravitate towards the ocean. I find a spot. I had a really rough day when I lived in Merced. We're very landlocked. We didn't have any beach clear next to us. So the one that I would go to all of the time was Santa Cruz. I love Santa Cruz. There was a time in my life that I wanted to just live in Santa Cruz. I probably still would live in Santa Cruz if I had enough money, but I'll never reach that amount of wealth to afford Santa Cruz. But I still like to visit. But that was like my go-to. And I remember like I got some really devastating news and I just got in my car and started driving and I didn't even know where I was going to go. I just know I needed to think and process and like and I found myself I drove right to my favorite beach in Santa Cruz and I just sat there and didn't talk. I had my now husband with me. I had just met him and I told him, "Do you want to take a drive?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Where are we going?" I said, "I don't know yet." And I just kept driving. He trusted me. He let me take him like 2 hours away. And we ended up sitting on the beach. And after we'd been there for like an hour, he's like, "Do you want to talk about it?" And I'm like, "Not really." He's like, "All right." And we just sat there until I was ready to talk about it. It was pretty cool. Um, but that's like always when my dad passed away, it was the same thing. When my dad passed away, I was like, I want to go to San Felipe. We didn't live there yet. I was just like, I want to go to San Felipe because I just wanted to sit on the beach and process my grief. And there's just something about sitting by the ocean listening because it doesn't stop. You know what I mean? No matter what's going on in your life, the waves, they come in, they come out, they come in, they come out. And I just kind of see that as like life life keeps coming whether you want it to or not. You just have to learn how to navigate it. And, it's just a good reminder that all your problems are temporary. They're going to come in, they're going to go out. They're going to come in, they're going to go out. You just ebb and flow.
Love that.
That was pretty profound for someone who just
It
said they
was.
like sand everywhere, but I love the beach.
Right
What
on.
about you? What do you prefer?
Like I said, I mean, if the sand didn't follow me everywhere, probably sand. But I don't, I don't mind a nice lake.
Okay.
Um, when I was younger, I used to get in the water. Not maybe I'm not in the water so much anymore. So but I do like the mountains too. But like also, I don't know, the last few times I was on a lake, I was, on a patio boat or something else like that, which is fun to drive around on a pontoon and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but I guess, like I said, I grew up near the beach. I just probably, if we weren't bringing sand back, probably the beach. Do like a bonfire. I mean, definitely. So,
Oh, love a
yeah,
bonfire. Yeah,
yeah.
me too. It's funny because I like the beach. I like warm beaches. So let me put that caveat. I like warm beaches. So like Oregon coast is beautiful, which Oregon doesn't even call their beaches beaches. They call it the Oregon coast because it's always freezing cold there. Gorgeous, pristine, beautiful beaches. Always freezing freaking cold. It is like unpleasant and windy. Like you're like in a hurricane every freaking time. I mean, beautiful. But you can like see the stretches of sand going. There's nobody out there. Like you come to a Southern California beach, it's like packed. There's people everywhere. But there it's like always empty and it's very so again, I don't know what the word I'm looking for right here is, but it's like really cool to be there. As long as you're going with the wind and not against the wind, there's a lot of weather related factors at the
Yeah.
Oregon coast. And so I like the vibe there in the sense of, again, I like beach culture. So I love like the vibe on the Oregon coast. I like the types of businesses that are there, and the people are usually super chill. Um, but to like hang out on the beach and sit in the sand, absolutely not, unless I'm like looking to be exfoliated or sandblasted, because the wind is usually like ridiculous. That's when I don't like the sand, is when it's super windy and it hurts. And the
Yeah.
Oregon coast, it's you got to just, if you can find like the perfect day, it's great, but it's almost always freezing. And I'm not a fan. Remember, I'm not a fan of cold, so not
Yeah.
my favorite thing.
Yeah, maybe that's why I wasn't necessarily so. I mean, there are some beaches like in the Bay Area, like going to Stinson Beach. It's just a different place.
Hmm.
I mean, Santa Cruz, it was like, I don't know, the closest beach to me where it was actually warm water, which was kind of cool,
Hmm.
growing up. I went to Santa Cruz all the time growing up, but it was more just to be on the boardwalk, than
Hmm.
actually just hang
Hmm.
out at the beach. But yeah, I mean, I guess just, and that's the thing. I now that I think about it, I don't want to feel like I'm taking for granted because I know some people who have never seen the ocean, right? And they talk about that, and it's like, you know, I, I feel like I'm taking it for granted. Like, I have some type of privilege that, you know, I need to
Right.
recognize. So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel the same. I can't understand. And again, you don't know what you don't know. So, but I can't, as someone who's born and raised in California, I've never experienced not being a drive away from the ocean. So, for people who live like very inland in some of those landlocked states that have never seen it, I'm sure there's other beautiful things that they're like, what? The beach over the mountains are miraculous and whatever, because that's what you're used to. More power to you, but I can't imagine not seeing like the having that experience of seeing the ocean. The ocean's just fantastic.
Me, it just feels like the world is moving. It's in motion when you're
Hmm.
near a beach, like near an ocean, right? The world is moving. You can feel it coming in, coming
Yeah,
out in a way that, I mean, I guess if you have a lot of wind and whatnot, but I mean, just naturally, it's not something that has to be manufactured by a weather event. It's just going to happen because
yeah,
it's the tides, the moon, right? The moon phases. So
yeah,
yeah, I hear it.
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like my whole life I've always said, oh, I want to live by the beach. I want to live by the beach. If you've ever like been in California, unless you're like a multimillionaire, you're never gonna be able to live by the beach. At least not in California. Maybe like north, like Crescent City and stuff like that, closer to the Oregon coast. Um, But that's one of the things where I'm like, I've made it in life. Ugh, kissing myself on the cheek because I can see the ocean from my kitchen window in Mexico. And that to me is like I've peaked in life. There's nowhere to go from here. Because that was like my life dream, is like I want to be where I can see the ocean from my house. I don't want beachfront property because of erosion. I'm also very logical. I don't want to live on the beach where the you can see the waves, because in 10 years that may not exist. But I want to be able to see the ocean from my house. And now I have that. I don't know. I don't know where I go from here. I've pretty much made it. So who knows? I got a question for you though.
Okay.
Music. I know you like music. So I have a music related question. What are your top three albums of all time? Like albums that you can listen to beginning to end and just love every song on them.
I have more than three of those, but just the top
You got to
three.
give top three, top three.
Probably um Abbey Road from the Beatles,
Good
Houses
one.
of the Holy from Led Zeppelin,
Another
and
good one.
In Rainbows from Radiohead. Those are probably my top three, and the fourth one would probably be Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. Those are I mean, and
Okay.
like I said, I've got a bunch of them, but
Hmm.
if you if I put a gun to my head, that's where I go.
All right.
So, so there's, I mean, we could spend all day talking about those. So, anyways,
I
what's
know.
yours?
I know. It was really hard for me not to think of like all Depeche Mode albums because if
Yeah,
you have met me before, you know I love all things Depeche Mode. They're my favorite band of all time. But um, I decided to diversify my portfolio for this question. Um, Songs of Faith and Devotion from Depeche Mode is probably my number one favorite, and that was a really hard tie with Violator. Those two together uh, are but I would pick if I could only listen to one, I would listen to Songs of Faith and Devotion. That would be my number one. I also love The Chronic by Dr. Dre. That one is just an iconic album. I love it. I can probably sing every song on there. Well, I mean, it's not singing or whatever you want to call it, but every time I hear a song off of that album, I'm like, oh, that's my jam. That's my jam. That's my every song is my favorite song there. And then I know we've talked about this one before, but Lemonade by Beyonce. And again, not a huge Beyonce fan. Again, don't come for me, please. She's got some good songs, but that album was just really well made, like very smart in the way it was written and how each song kind of plays into the next, and the visual album that goes along with it really is very impactful in making it very memorable. I really love that album and the range of emotions that you go through listening to it. Those are, I think, my three favorite. And all the ones you said I like too.
yeah,
One of my favorite songs is Creep by Radiohead.
hmm
One of my favorite songs of all time.
yeah. No, yeah, it's a great song. It's actually, I think, probably their least favorite song of all their songs, but
That song.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
actually me. I always call it that's me, my husband's song, and I can't tell the story here of why that's one of our favorite. Like that's our song. Why that kind of like identifies us. It's
yeah.
a story I'm gonna keep secret, but every time I hear it, it makes me smile from ear to ear because it
Oh,
brings up a very intense memory.
mm.
But I won't tell that here. I think I still am not beyond the statute of limitations on that one. I'll keep it to myself. But
I don't have to check. I don't have to check. Is this safe for 18-year-olds? So yeah, or people
yeah,
under 18.
no. So we're not going to tell that story, but I will say
Okay.
that every time I hear that song, it takes me back to a specific in San Francisco of all places. It takes me back to a moment in San Francisco where I thought to myself, you know what? This might be the guy. This might be my
Um,
other half because I think we might be made for each other.
um,
Yeah.
you let my dog in. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, oh, sorry about that.
I love the dogs.
Yeah, I know. I just saw him rummaging around out there. I'm like, oh crap, I need to bring him in. All right. So speaking of albums that we just can't let go, there was about say 10 years ago, I went to a training that my boss had been to and really um, came back energized and motivated and inspired and wanted us to share it with the rest of the organization I was working for. And so we set it up for them to come in, and we got a 2 day class on situational leadership from the folks who run it, the Ken Blanchard companies, right? And so
Mhm.
it was something that it was really it was great. Our instructor Kathy Cuff, who's amazing, she really knew her stuff. She walked us through it, And it was something that we really incorporated into our performance management programs, the way that our check-ins and our regular one-on-one meetings. We were talking about those one-on-one meetings in the last class. We actually created a template for folks to use if they wanted to, where they talked about um, their status reports, what programs they're working on, where they were, when they were due, and then also there was a space to let people put in their situational leadership, um, uh, what uh, what level they were at in terms of situational leadership, in terms of comfort level with the program if they needed any assistance. And so it was something that really resonated with us, and it stuck with me, and I've used it a lot. And I know, you've looked into it as well, and it's something that's widely used. But what is your experience with situational leadership, Tiff?
So for me, thinking about, I haven't had the pleasure of going to a course. I learned about it the old-fashioned way by reading the book. Um, so but I love to read books. My learning style is reading and doing, and so I really love, and not audiobooks. I have to hold the paper copy in my hand. I can't even read off a Kindle. It has to be in my hand because I take notes and do all kinds of stuff. But um, one of the things I like about the concept or the practice of situational leadership is the realization that you don't have to be one type of leader all of the time. I'm a huge fan of flexibility, and being able to adapt and change, much like the ocean kind of ebbs and flows, to meet people where they're at and lead them in the way that they need to be led, and realizing that different people might be at different places, so there's no one size fits all approach that will always work. I really like the idea of leading people in the way that they need, and being adaptable to your circumstances. And so that's, for me, one of the big parts of situational leadership is knowing when it's the right time to be directive and tell people what to do, and knowing when it's a good time to coach them, or how to be supportive, and when to let go of control and give it to the other people and delegate the work because they're ready for it. So, again, meeting people where they're at and keeping them engaged and keeping them motivated by meeting their needs, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah, it's definitely really helpful in being flexible and recognizing, we talk about the need to individualize our leadership styles, right? To engage our individual staff members, co-workers, colleagues, right? And so just thinking about each person is at a different place, whether it's a new employee, it's a more experienced employee, or it's an employee who's in a new position or taking on a new skill set, right? So it really helps to and prescribes different places that we can go in helping those folks, right? And so,
Mhm.
those um, four levels of development that we have, and it goes from D1 to D4, right? And our development levels, and we have those four different development levels, and they're based off the idea of competence and commitment, right? So, what are our competence levels, right? So, are we skilled? Do we have knowledge, or do we understand the goal, right? And those things that we need to be able to perform, but then also the commitment. Are we motivated, right? Do we have the confidence to get those things done? And so there's four different levels based off of the level of commitment and competence, right? And that first level is when people are new to something, right? When they haven't necessarily, or I mean, usually it's somebody who's new. So low competence and high commitment, right? So they are um, they can be new, right? So very often it's I'm new to the job. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing, or I understand what's asked of me, but I'm still new to the job, I mean, to the organization, and so you know I'm excited to get things done. I don't know exactly what's expected of me, right? And that can even be on the first day. That can so somebody in a D1 level is somebody who, is not necessarily, I mean, might be skilled, but they're new to an organization, new to a job, new to a duty. And so they might not necessarily be as skilled, but they might, have a high commitment, that excitement of starting a new job, the excitement of starting on a new task. I may not know a whole lot about what I'm doing, but I'm excited to get it done. And then you have that next level, which is where you have some confidence. You're learning, you're getting the hang of it. You're maybe still practicing, maybe on probation. And I've had somebody say, enough to be dangerous, right?
Mhm.
And very often I've been there long enough to, where maybe my commitment level is wavering, just based off of, well, I know I've been here long enough, so I know what to expect. This is a lot of work. I'm learning. Maybe I'm a little frustrated. I haven't quite necessarily got to where I want to be. I want to learn faster, or, I'm having some challenges with my staff or whatever else it is, right? Where maybe we're a little anxious. We're not quite where we want to be. And then that third level is when we have the job down, or maybe we understand it fully and we can do some things and we're pretty good, and can be left on our own to perform most tasks. We're still learning, we're still getting better. Maybe we haven't quite faced everything that is expected of us in the job. But I've been there long enough to understand not just the job, but the people, the organization. And so the commitment can be variable. I mean, we can be, you know, um, excited and feeling good about things, or maybe, maybe still a little frustrated. Just with the daily grind. And then you have that fourth level where people are high in competence and high in commitment, where they know the job like the back of their hand, and they might even be tasked to mentor other folks, right? And be given chances to develop not just their skills, but also their thought processes and get in maybe into leadership and really are those folks who you can count on to be your, I don't want to say right hand people, but those mentors.
Mhm. This
And,
this made me think. Oh, sorry, Carl.
no,
Go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, it's just saying that it's funny because as we're talking about this, it makes me think about like induction training when somebody starts brand new with the county. They
Mhm.
come that first day and they're so excited and they are got their best like first day of school, got their cute little new outfit on and they're so curious and they can't believe they've nailed this job. They're so excited and then that newness wears off and then all of a sudden they like are doing great on the test and they're learning everything and but they're starting to point out like you all should do this and I don't know why you should do that like that overconfidence you know and then they actually get their real cases and they start doing the work and they're like I know nothing
Yeah.
I all this I thought I knew it all but now that I'm doing it I have so many questions like I know where to look I have like the concept but doing it is really hard and so now I'm like really struggling what did I do what did I get myself into and then with time and practice now, they get to that fourth level where I could do this with my eyes closed. I'm very invested. That's what it made me think of in going through those four stages.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally equated that to I use that example all the time when people are in induction class or they're on probation, they're learning things and they're being thrown all these different scenarios, but so they maybe they're not necessarily as good at it, but they're getting the hang of it. It's in a safe environment. And then what happens on the first day on the floor? None of that stuff that you were trained on, because you have to utilize that stuff with real people, right? So it's like, oh,
Right.
so that can really be a challenge where I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like I'm supposed to know this stuff, but I mean, now this is a different challenge and this can be hard. And then you get the hang of it. And like you said, by the time, you're in there for a while, I remember asking my one of my mentors on the first day, how long did it take you to get used to this? She goes, oh, about a year. I'm like, a year?
Mhm.
I don't want to wait a year, right? I want it now. I want to feel comfortable now. And it was definitely something that, made me want to work hard towards things, but it's those levels are definitely, observable, and you can feel them, right? I'm excited, then maybe I'm not excited, right? And then oh, I'm in the groove, and then what else can I do? Right.
Yeah. The other thing that this like for me kind of equates to is like the different levels of competency where you go from like unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence, right? Like that first level, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm really excited about learning, right? Again, that first day you're really excited about the opportunities, and then you find out exactly what you don't know, and you're either curious or you're turned off by it. Like, this is harder than I thought, or, what was I thinking? Or I really got to figure this out. And then the conscious competence where it's like, I know what I need to do now. I just have to think about it. I have to like, I'm not super confident in it, but I know what I need to do. So I've just got to practice and develop that skill. And then that last part where you're just like, I nailed it. I can do this with my eyes closed. And, I'm skilled. I'm there. I don't have to think about it. So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking about too. But this is why situational leadership is so important, because you can have five people start on the same day and they're going to be at different levels throughout that time frame. For some person, they may go from level 1 to level 4 in a year. For other people, it may take 3 to 5 years. For other people, 2 months. I mean, it just really depends. But if I take somebody who is very able and confident and committed, that unconscious competence where they can do with their eyes closed, and I'm like, step one, do this. Step two, do that, and then hit save. They're going to be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Get out of my
Okay.
face. Like, I know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. Quit micromanaging me. But
Yeah.
if I take somebody who is building their competency and maybe unsure and insecure about the work and not sure what to do, and I'm like, well, figure it out. Let me know what you decide. That might be completely overwhelming for them. Although that would work with, again, somebody who feels confident in what they're doing, but it's not going to work for somebody who feels lost or is still struggling to kind of put things together. That would be the wrong approach. And again, they may not make it through probation, or they may not stay for a long time because they didn't get the support that they needed. Here's a
Yeah.
binder, read it and tell me what you learned, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's you're pointing right to the need to be flexible with those folks, right? When you talk about the competency levels, I always equate it to learning how to drive, right?
Yeah,
Unconscious
same.
incompetence means you're sitting in the back of your car, or your parents' car, playing with your action figures or your Game Boy. You don't even think about the need to drive, right? And then conscious incompetence is, well, other people are driving, my friends are driving, they're in driver's ed. How come I'm not driving? Maybe I should learn how to drive. And then conscious competence is you're behind the wheel, you're checking your mirrors every 7 seconds, you're hitting your brakes, you're not trying to swerve to the right, like my mom used to yell at me all the time. And then I yelled at my daughter, stop swerving to the right, and passing the test and making sure that you do all those things right with your turn signals and whatnot. And then unconscious competence is when you get to work and you even forget how you got there that morning. What was the route, right? And so
Yeah.
those are things that happen to us as we develop. But it's really important, like you mentioned, those folks who are those fourth level, of that development of that unconscious competence, treating them like you would somebody who is a first level. You can really make them feel like, hey, stop micromanaging me. While if you have somebody who's in that first level, if you treat them like the fourth level, they're going to end up having to learn the job on their own. It's going to be twice as hard. They may not necessarily make it. You might make assumptions that keep them from um, not only excelling at the job, but staying at the job, right? So there's levels of supervision and leadership that are prescribed to go with that. And so with the D1 level, right? And these levels are based off of how much um, directive behavior you have. So how much you're directing folks and how much you're supporting them, right? And so that first level is really called, I mean, it's nicknamed the directing level, right? So you have a high direction, low support, which means those folks who come in and they don't know what they don't know, you're giving them what they know, what they need to know, right? So even on that first day, here's the security code, here's how you enter the system, Here's where you put your password in. Here's where you clock out during the day. Here's your staff. This is what your schedule is going to look like. This is the door that you walk in every morning, right? And, just even those basic things, right? Or when you're in training, this is the screens that you need to put, you need to enter this information into the screen and then hit enter. This is the process you use. This is the checklist you use. These are, the ways that we get things done. And so really it's not about um, doing anything but informing people how to get stuff done. So it's considered low support because it's not about really supporting folks. It's the support is in the direction, right? And teaching them how to do the job. And then that second level, which is higher support, right? And it's actually called the coaching level, right? So it's higher support, but it's also high direction, right? So the support is, based off of, the level of frustration, fear, the disappointment, worry that they're not picking things up in time or that things are a little different than they thought. And so we are really trying to help them through this level where, and it really is kind of like on that J curve that people talk about when you're learning something, even in the team building, the forming, storming, norming, and performing, right? This is pretty consistent with that in that storming phase where our performance is suffering as we learn more about each other and learn more about what the job is. It can be a challenge. So even individually, we can be frustrated and we're not necessarily getting to where we want to be and maybe where other people are on our team, in our department, relative in the same position we're in. And so that leader is there to help people through that, to listen, to provide that empathy and that support, and also point people in the right direction of where to go and how to solve that problem. So it's still, we are providing direction, but we're doing it in a different way, right? With the S1 level, we're leading with direction. With the S2 level, we're listening and then, providing support to help people um, understand how they're feeling is normal and natural, and then we're moving past that into that third level, which is supporting, right? Which is when we're not being so directive, right? But we are supporting people, right? So people have the hang of it. So we're having a conversation with them and we're talking about, how are things going? Yeah, okay, you're getting the hang of it. Cool. Yeah, and you can be left alone, or maybe they might even have some ideas of how they're doing things or what they want to do better. We don't necessarily need to direct them, but it's really about, keeping their spirits up, maybe providing some mentorship in those situations. Hey, when I was in your position, I was doing this. You might want to think about doing this, right? Those things like that can be helpful. And then in that the fourth level of supervising of the leadership levels is pretty much delegating, right? So they don't really need a lot of support. And they definitely don't need a lot of direction. So it's really what can we do to help make your job easier? How can we remove any barriers, right? They may come to you with ideas of, hey, I think we can do this better. The idea of coming in between 5 and 5:30. Hey, I was just thinking of some ideas that we have to make things work. And really, in that sense, that fourth level of leadership is okay. Let's see if we can make that happen because I trust your judgment and I trust your experience and how you got that done. So the prescription is there for each one of those levels. And as you mentioned, somebody who, is experienced and and got it down and their supervisor is, you know, really directing them that people can lose motivation there. And so making sure that we're appropriate with each level is so important.
Yeah. It's funny that when you were talking about this, you brought up the J curve and the stages of team development, the forming, storming, norming, and performing. Because I swear to you, I was thinking the exact same thing. So I was like, oh man, Carl's reading my mind. So, in to create like simplicity around these leadership styles, I know, that I love the idea of the high directive, low supportive, or whatever that looks like. But if we can put this in an example, in that first phase when people are not sure what they don't know what to do, right? You don't know what you don't know. As a leader have to show up as a teacher. So you really have to take the direction of here's what you do, here's how you do it, here's why you do it, and really kind of share information. Like your primary role there is that of a teacher or a director of, I have to teach you what you need to know so that you can be successful. And also keeping in mind that people learn different ways. And so being flexible, even within this style, is going to be important because just because you told me once doesn't mean I comprehend it. Just because you showed me the handbook doesn't mean that I learned it or I can apply it. So, um, this in the stages of team development is the forming phase where you're really setting the expectations and developing the skill so that people can be successful. And this is a huge step. You really can't move to the latter ones without doing this one first. And by the way, like this is cyclical. You can have someone who's at the like level 4, they're very competent and able to do their job and they're doing it well, but something changes, they're going to go right back to you're going to go right back to directing. You have to change your leadership style because they go from being the expert to now it's brand new. I'm an amateur, just like everybody else. We go back to that directing style, right? Teach people what they need to know. So here it's a lot of information giving, sharing resources, sharing information, directing people, right? The coaching, I love that you use the storming here. This is where there's a lot of drama. Like people like know enough to be dangerous, like you said earlier, they know enough to be dangerous, but they're not always versed enough to be able to apply those skills accurately. And you have to correct from time to time because I think I'm doing the right thing. I think I'm doing the thing that you taught me to do, but I haven't gotten enough feedback to really be good at it. So I may need some guidance from time to time to direct me back to what it is I'm supposed to be doing. So here, relationships are incredibly important. Not a lot of uh, efficiency happens at this level because really, as the leader, as you step into this like coaching role, you are really trying to help people live whatever those expectations are by giving a lot of reinforcement, but also guiding people and correcting them. And this is a huge step because if we don't do the coaching, if you don't show up in this role, then you are reinforcing sometimes bad behaviors, right? So if I say like the directive is we treat each other with respect and we're respectful as teammates, that's the directive I'm giving. That's the skill set is that we treat each other with respect. But then everybody's gossiping about Carl's t-shirt and I see that and I don't say, I know in this team we're going to be respectful. Can you tell me a little bit more about talking about the clothing choices that Carl is it made without talking to him about it? How is that respectful? I'm not saying you can't talk about Carl. We're respectful people. I'm coaching you through that. Again, I'm clarifying the expectation. The expectations were respectful to each other. And here's where I become supportive. I know. I know. It's a great
Hmm.
t-shirt. That's the only thing that could come to mind. That's the only trash I could talk right now, Carl. Sorry. But,
Oh, that's all right.
but I want to come back to it. Like, tell me how you're modeling that behavior. We're respective. Tell me a little bit more about how that's showing respect to Carl or making us a more respectful team. It could even be, again, an action that somebody took. Again, we work in human services. And so maybe I taught you how to do income this way, but you put it in another way. Instead of me going and saying, you did income all wrong, what the hell's wrong with you? I might be a little bit curious and say, I noticed that you put it in this way. What was your intention? What were you hoping to accomplish there? And then have them understand, you can understand their thought process and support them to why the directive is the right directive, but not shaming them for you got it wrong, but help me understand where you're coming from and let me redirect you back to, because they're open at this phase. I want to learn, I want to do it right. But if I come and say you're wrong, then they're going to feel very, very discouraged and um, incompetent, which in a learning environment, people don't like to feel incompetent. Nobody likes to feel incompetent. Some people try really hard, but they don't like it. So coaching is again highly directive. You still have to you might have to do some teaching and some clarification, but your ultimate role is not to judge people, but to help again guide them back and coach them back, saying, here's the goal, here's what you're doing, help us get you back on track so that we can all win the game, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Um, Supportive is very much like you said, people know what they're doing now, but they may lack confidence. They may not be sure. And so they might ask a lot of questions. And so I might not have to clarify the expectation. It may just be somebody wanting to bounce ideas off me to make sure they're going in the right track. So, hey, Carl, I got this family I'm working with, and these are the circumstances. What should I do? And you know that they know what they're supposed to do. You know that they have the answer. They're just not feeling confident about it. I might, instead of jumping in and saying, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that, which is very directive, I might come in and say, well, I have some ideas. What are you thinking? Or what are the circumstances that you're looking at that have you on the fence? What does the policy say? Right? What do you think is in the best interest of the family that doesn't violate any rules? Like, so I might ask those type of questions because I want to support you, but I don't necessarily want to give you the answer. And then, of course, the delegating, it's just you're checking in with people. And this is where, when I used the word stretch assignment last time, this is where in that delegating, low directive, low supportive, when it comes to like motivation, these are your highest performers. They're really good at the work and they don't need a lot of like oversight. A lot of times they come to work, they do their job, but they get bored. And so delegating gives them some either authority or task that's a little bit more than what their day to day entails, that challenges them, gives them that opportunity to have mastery or autonomy or to solve a problem where you can really trust them with that, and keep them connected to progress versus just feeling like I'm stuck in the cycle of doing the same thing all day, every day. Now, that doesn't always work for everybody. Sometimes doing the same thing all day, every day is exactly what they're looking for. But this is why you have to look at people and check in with them because not everybody's going to need the same thing.
Absolutely. And it correlates, yeah, absolutely with those team conversations. And, when you're having individual team members that are learning new things, right? Just like you mentioned, you can have somebody who is experienced and has been there and is on that fourth level that is learning a new system. Oh, I don't know, like a lot of people were in the state last year and still learning today,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
they're it can be a challenge. Some people are very used to what they were doing before, and they might be having a hard time getting the hold of it, getting the hang of it, right? And so, like you mentioned, that can lead to people, asking for help or maybe not feeling like they can ask for help, especially if they're on a team or, well, you're in the same training I was. I don't understand why that's so hard. I learned it in a half an hour. Meanwhile, it's taking you for 2 days, right? And you know, people don't want to be judged and they don't want to feel like you think that they are less than, right? So that can really lead to challenges. So in that sense, being that leader, I can give you an example. Before the pandemic, I did not have a Zoom account. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
WebEx account, right? I had used WebEx a little bit, in a job, but then I used Microsoft Teams for just instant messaging, right? So when we got the final word that we were going to move to virtual, it really was a threat to my job, right? Either we're going virtual or you have to find another line of work. And so I really had to think about how am I going to move into this area where I do not have any experience. And it was hard. It was hard to think about that. I'd been training for over 10 years, well over 10 years in the same way. And I had had beliefs and thoughts about how to train and how that was the right way. And um, the being virtual, it's not the same as face to face. It's hard to have engagement and all these other things. And so I had to get out of my own mental space, right, and
Yeah.
learn, the the actual platforms. And so mentally, in terms of technical experience, I was probably a D1, if not a low D2 type of learner. And with my attitude, it was definitely D2, where my commitment was low because, I didn't believe in it, so I had to really, think about what I was doing. Luckily, I had some people, who helped me through it and provided support and did not look down on me that I asked all these questions about how to do things and, and didn't, oh, you
Hmm.
don't know how to do this? You've never logged into here before? No, they were very, very supportive. They helped me through um, basic understandings of those platforms. And so it led me to become more of a D2 where I was learning um, maybe some of the engagement tools, which I needed to know. And I worked really hard at it. And, I got to the point where, I was feeling pretty proficient after the first class. And a lot of what I was going into also was a little bit of the fear. I'm going to be teaching people who are much more proficient at this than me. So your teacher is going to be a beginner and a novice. And I understand the flow of trainings and how, if it's too slow, you might lose engagement with me. Right. And so I was worried about that. And also that identity of being a subject matter expert to a beginner when it came to the technology. And so there's a lot of conversations I was having with myself. Right. And so
Yeah.
to have people that were there to help me and support me through that, I really got the hang of it to the point where, I train other folks on how to, uh, provide online presentations now. Right. And so, but, shoot, 4 years ago, that was not the case. And so, just thinking about those things that can help us, right? And those directing behaviors, and even folks who are and who are experienced, but even in new folks, so you mentioned, clarity, understanding what the objectives are, setting those clear goals. And you mentioned teaching and being supportive in that teaching, right? So telling people what to do, but also, giving them some motivation while you're doing that. And how do we check in? How do we evaluate how you're doing? Right? Just think about that
Hmm.
induction class, right? And all the ways that people learn the new systems and new processes, um, you know, how to create plans, how to fill out forms, and how to process those forms. I'm sure you've been in situations where you've trained folks in those and it's really been a struggle with some folks. And some folks pick it up quicker than others, right? And you have people in your induction class who are ready to go home at 4 o'clock and it's almost 4:30 and some people are struggling, and probably looking over at their coworkers wondering, why am I not getting the hang of it? Right. So it can be really
Hmm.
tough to make sure, we direct people to do those things that can help them to feel more confident in the technical ability that can lead to their improvement on commitment and just being listening, encouraging, reassuring, praising folks, make that information accessible, staying away from, it's important to use jargon and acronyms, right? Because if you work in government service, that's your language, right? And but what does that jargon, what do those acronyms mean? And deciphering them and letting people know what they mean, letting people get comfortable with them without, you know, I don't want to say not shouting them down, but talking down to them, right? Helping them, like you mentioned, encourage problem solving. So, where did you go the last time? Okay, where would you want to go this time without sounding condescending, right? Because how many people will, where did you go last time, right? You want to make sure people know that you're treating them like adults. You're just helping them to build that competency by going through it on their own, right? And then the other big thing is explaining why, right? Whether it's a technical change, right? Whatever else it is, if you don't explain the why, it's hard for people to buy in, right? If you don't explain the why, you're going to have natural resistance, right? So why are we doing this? Let me know why this is important. Why are we switching this system? Why do I have to learn this new function? Why do I have to take on this new role? Right. And if people understand that why and that motivation, like we spent a lot of time talking about in the last class, they'll be more apt to buy in to learning. Because if we don't have the why, sometimes that gets in the way of us learning the new thing. Okay, I know I need to remember this. Oh, I forgot it. Why am I doing this in the first place? You ever had that situation? Why are we doing this? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Which make it hard to remember. This concludes part one of our episode. Stay tuned for part two, coming Tuesday, all major podcast